Hello Minecrafters, Gearsaw Studios here. Today I'm going to show you how to build a 1 block high house, so that way you can claim you have the most space efficient house ever. However, before I begin, remember, please like and subscribe, it really helps me out. So with that, onto the tutorial. Before choosing the palette, first find a nice flat wall in order to make sure you can build the converter to 1 block high, because there's no point in building a 1 block high house if you cannot get it. So just a simple thing you can do for now is placing down a piston, then place down a button like this, and now it keeps you down. So time it right, now you're stuck in a 1 block high area. Just a little note that this converter does not work on Bedrock Edition, unfortunately, and there are no alternatives without using mods and or data packs. So those of you who want to do this on Bedrock, unfortunately you cannot. But those of you who continue watching or play on Java, the palette for this build is going to be stone bricks, acacia planks, and shroom lights, because shroom lights are just a nice lighting source, and since lanterns and such will actually block the player, it's a good choice since it can be part of the wall. Now, for the first thing you'll want to do is you'll want to dig out this part of the base. Since remember, the entire thing is very small, because you're only going to be 1 block tall, there's not much room for details, and you can't really add many decorations, so you don't need too big of an area. So I'm just going to give myself a bigger area just so you can crawl around the base a bit more. So maybe about 9 by 9 will be good. Since you can probably not see in here because it's so dark, I'd start by making a polished andesite area in the middle of the room and place a shroom light here. So that way you can actually see what you're doing. Since if you can't see what you're doing, you don't know what you're building, and that's not particularly good. Then fill in the rest of the floor with some good old acacia planks. I've also opted to use some polished andesite for an outline, but there's another thing you can do. If you do not have access to a piston, what you can do is use a trapdoor to get the same idea. You could also use an elytra to get in, but the space might be a little too small if you already have an elytra. But still, with these methods, it does not work on Bedrock Edition. But for now, just start filling in the walls with some polished andesite and stone bricks, and make the ceiling some stone bricks, because remember, you cannot add many details, so it's going to be relatively simple. Another thing that you should not forget about is lighting, because one thing in the middle is not going to save you. So place down some shroom lights around the walls, and now it's properly lit up, because the only thing that can spawn in here would be spiders if it's poorly lit due to its short size. Lighting's not as big of an issue, but rather just a convenience that you can use. Now, most of the build is done. Now, before doing anything else, the biggest issue would be adding an enchanting table. Due to the shortness of this build, it's really hard to get the amount of bookshelves needed to enchant an item fully. So, pulling out a good old axe, it seems like the amount of enchanting is going to be practically none because the enchanting table cannot see. So you might have to dig out an extra area in order to get your desired 30 levels. Now that the enchanting table, the hardest part, is done, it does kind of break the rules a little, since it has to be 2 blocks high to access all the enchantments. But if you stand back, or even better, you could actually just place a slab so you aren't technically going into the area, and you can still enchant your items. So that's a viable solution to this issue. The rest of the essentials you'll need, such as your furnaces, are pretty easy to do. Just replace part of the wall with them, because they're pretty small. Don't forget your crafting tables, and you can add more furnaces, stone cutters, possibly smithing tables, in order to get your fancy netherite gear early. And this is pretty good, but there's an issue: beds. because you're only going to be able to be 1 block high in here. How are you supposed to sweep? Since you won't be able to sweep, you have 2 options. Either you'll have to make a new area that you can actually stand in, which breaks the rules, or you can be an insomniac. I'm going to choose with the better option of the 2, just breaking the rules, because no one really wants to be an insomniac, because that means phantoms will come and you can't skip the night either. So make sure to add a trapdoor thing so that way you can convert yourself back into your 1 block form, and now you can set your respawn point. Then make sure to properly light up the area and add your details, and now you have one of the other essentials that you'll need. Now, since that you got pretty much everything, why not extend it further and add even more functions to this tiny base? So another thing you'll need is food. So you can either go with 2 options. You can either get out your grass and plant some sweet berries, like this, and this will get you quite the amount of food because sweet berries produce quite a lot. Or you could actually go with these, which I'm going to go with the latter of the 2 options. So dig out your area, and then dig out this wall so that way you can plant flowers, and then get your beehives. Once you have your beehives, place down your campfires like this, and this will make a little bit of noise with the cackling of the campfires and the buzzing of bees. So only do this if you're okay with the noises. Now that you have some bees in, well, beehives, then summon your actual bees. And they're going to be flying around the base, so you might want to add another trapdoor so that way you can shut them off. So that way you don't accidentally have a swarm of bees flying around your main base. Then plant down your houses in this side. With the bees added so that way your food issues are resolved, you'll also need storage. Since you cannot have many things that are higher than 1 block, barrels are pretty much the way to go because they can be opened pretty much from anywhere, as long as you can reach them. So place them down, ceiling, possibly even the floor of this area, but remember to keep it pretty. And you can just add a lot of barrels, and you'll be surprised how much you can add in this small space. Even better, they're more resource efficient than chests, because they only require slabs instead of all planks. So it's only 6 planks and 2 slabs instead of 8 planks, which will save you in the long run. So now you have a storage system. That does get pretty dark at the end, so you might want to add a shroom light at the end. Now, another issue has been solved with this base, and it's very livable right now. With all these things added, you are now left with a very livable, small base that is pretty hard to detect from the outside, considering if you hide it in a wall. So, if you just block it up, it will be very hard to detect since it's underground and it's only 1 block high, so the chances of someone accidentally digging into it on a mining expedition is relatively low. Along with that, you can live in it because there's storage, food, enchanting, pretty much everything you'll need. And it's very expandable. Since it's inside a mountain and is so space efficient, you can add crops, mines, and other things that you'll need. One final thing to say about this, besides being only Java exclusive, is that, of course, you can crawl in it. And your model looks pretty silly because you clip into so many things, and you can even back yourself into a wall to pretty much shove your legs into a wall. So, pressing F5 in here is very silly, just seeing how your player can distort because the weird hitboxes in here. So, with that, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe, as I have a lot of videos stored up, so that way you'll have a lot of videos for Christmas. However, before I leave, remember, stay compact, Gearsaw out.